So we have practice questions from the topic nutrition. We have 1 mark questions. 1 mark questions are basically MCQs and very short answers. 2 mark questions are short answers. You have to write short answers for 2 mark questions. Then 3 mark, 4 mark and 5 mark, all these are long answers. So let's start practicing these questions now. Mode of nutrition in fungus. So what is the mode of nutrition in fungus? Your options are Holozoic nutrition, Parasitic nutrition, Saprophytic nutrition. Then we have photosynthesis. So answer is Saprophytic nutrition. Why Saprophytic nutrition? Because fungus feeds on dead and decaying organic matter. So fungus are also called heterotrophic saprophytes. Okay, because they depend on the chemical or the organic matter produced from dead and decaying plants and animals. So it is saprophytic nutrition. Next question, which component in food gives amino acid on digestion? To answer this, you should be knowing what are the nutrients made up of. What is carbohydrate made up of, what is protein made up of, that you should be knowing. So which component of food gives amino acid on digestion? So carbohydrate is made up of glucose. Then we have protein, which is made up of amino acid. Starch, again, it is made up of glucose. And we have fat, which is made up of fatty acid and glycerol. So protein is made up of amino acids. When enzymes digest protein, what will happen? The protein will be broken down into amino acids. 1 mark question. In which part of the alimentary canal food is finally digested? So final digestion process, where does it happen? Options are stomach, mouth cavity, large intestine, small intestine. So we know that the final digestion process, so digestion starts from the mouth, right? Starts from mouth, then goes to stomach. Then the process is in stomach. After stomach is the small intestine. So absorption of nutrients happens in the small intestine. So digestion is completed in small intestine. So complete digestion takes place in small intestine. Absorption of nutrients begin in the small intestine. And you should be knowing large intestine, only reabsorption of water happens in large intestine. So the complete process of digestion takes place in small intestine. Oxygen liberated during photosynthesis comes from. So we discussed about the events of photosynthesis, and there are basically 4 steps. If you remember the 3rd step, right? Photolysis of. So the option here is carbon dioxide, water, oxygen and chlorophyll. So the oxygen liberated during photosynthesis comes from photolysis of water. So it comes from the water. So hydrolysis of water takes place during photosynthesis. So lysis of water, the 3rd step in photosynthesis. So water is the answer. Next comes, which component in plant absorbs sunlight? Component in plant: hemoglobin, chlorophyll, carbohydrate, minerals. So we know that in green plants absorb sun's energy, right? So it is because of the chlorophyll molecule which absorbs the. So chlorophyll allows plants to absorb light energy. Chlorophyll absorbs mainly or strongly blue and red light portion from the electromagnetic spectrum, that is white light. From the white light, the blue and the red light is strongly absorbed by the chlorophyll molecule. What is needed for digestion of protein by pepsin? So basic environment, neutral environment, acidic environment, high temperature. So digestion of protein, right? So by pepsin, when we say by pepsin, it is happening in the stomach. So stomach, we have acidic environment because of the hydrochloric acid. So inactive pepsinogen will be converted, or which will be activated into pepsin in the presence of acidic environment. So it is acidic environment is the answer. If salivary amylase is lacking in the saliva, which of the following event in the mouth cavity will be affected? Protein breaking down into amino acid, starch breaking down into sugar, fat breaking down into fatty acid and glycerol, absorption of vitamins. So the answer here, that is conversion or converting starch into maltose. Maltose is nothing but sugar. So what happens? Suppose the salivary amylase is not there. Then the conversion of starch into sugar, which happens in the mouth cavity, that will be affected. So amylase converts starch into maltose. Maltose is a sugar. So that will not happen if salivary amylase is not there. So the answer is B. Next question. Choose the forms in which most plants absorb nitrogen. So absorbable form of nitrogen, which are they? Protein, nitrates and nitrites, urea, atmospheric nitrogen. So the absorbable form is nothing but nitrates and nitrites. So the bacteria rhizobium present in the root nodules of the leguminous plant fix the atmospheric nitrogen into absorbable forms of nitrates and nitrites. So answer is B. Which part does amoeba use to take in food? So I had showed you the picture also, right? So which part does amoeba use to take in the food? Cilia. Is there a cilia for amoeba? Flagella, false foot, and D is mouth. So obviously it is false foot, which is also known as pseudopodia. So for locomotion and food, amoeba uses false foot called as pseudopodia. What is needed for autotropism? So autotropism is nothing but photosynthesis, right? So what is needed for photosynthesis? Water and carbon dioxide, sunlight, chlorophyll, all of the above. So if you remember the equation for photosynthesis, all these, that is water, carbon dioxide, sunlight, chlorophyll, all are required for photosynthesis to happen. If one ingredient from this is missing, photosynthesis will not occur. So all of the above. Photosynthesis will not occur if any one of the material is not available. Which part of the brain controls peristalsis in alimentary canal? So peristalsis is an involuntary movement, right? That is controlled by which part of the brain? That is by the medulla. So medulla controls the peristalsis movement, which is an involuntary movement. Now, which nitrogen fixing bacteria is found in legumes? So this is a leguminous plant. Okay, it is a pea plant here. So here in the root nodules we have a bacteria, and that bacteria is called as a rhizobium. That bacteria is nothing but rhizobium. Given our two alimentary canals, identify the alimentary canal belonging to herbivores and carnivores. Give reason. So when we talk about herbivores and carnivores, we should remember that herbivores, they eat plants, whereas carnivores, they eat other animals. So herbivores, when they eat plant cells have cell wall. So definitely digestion takes longer time in case of the herbivores. So we have to see where the small intestine is larger here. Okay, the length of the small intestine is larger in case of herbivores. So if you see here, this is the stomach, then comes the small intestine, this is the cecum. Cecum is the connection between the small intestine and large intestine. And here it is colon or the large intestine. So what will happen here? In case of A, we have small intestine and cecum is very small over here. Here cecum is very large. That means that the food gets to stay longer in the small intestine because the digestion process needs more time in case of herbivores. So B is herbivore, alimentary canal of the herbivore. And A will be the alimentary canal of the carnivore. alimentary canal of the carnivore will be A. B is the alimentary canal of herbivore. Next question. Which organisms do not need specialized body parts? So specialized body parts in the sense respiratory system, digestive system, those systems are not needed. So answer is the unicellular organisms. We have paramecium, amoeba, euglena, all these are unicellular, single cell. They are made up of single cell. So what happens here is that the entire body surface is in contact with the environment. So through simple diffusion process, nutrition, respiration and excretion happens. In case of the unicellular organisms, no specialized body parts are present because through simple diffusion, nutrition, respiration and excretion can happen. Now coming to 2 marks question. So write the steps involved in photosynthesis. Basically there are 4 steps involved in photosynthesis, that is absorption of light by chlorophyll, conversion of the chemical solar energy or the light energy into chemical energy. When I say chemical energy, it is ATP and NADP. Then the third step is splitting up of the water molecule producing oxygen. Now the fourth step will be reduction of the carbon dioxide into carbohydrate, and this is the overall reaction that you have to write for photosynthesis. Carbon dioxide from atmosphere, water in presence of sunlight and chlorophyll produces glucose and oxygen. So the whole reaction has to be written for 2 marks. So these steps you have to mention. So next 2 mark question. Which among A and B are autotrophic and heterotrophic? You have to find which is autotrophic and which is heterotrophic here. So give reason. You have to find the reason also. So they say organism A stores food as glycogen, whereas organism B stores food as starch. And we all know that in case of A, that is stored food is glycogen. That is in case of heterotrophs. Okay, in case of heterotrophs, the stored food is glycogen. So glucose obtained from the food we consumed is stored in the form of glycogen in the adipose tissue. Next, B, it is a autotroph. Why? Because in case of autotrophs, the glucose produced during photosynthesis will be stored in the form of starch. So A is heterotrophic, B is autotrophic. That should be your answer. Where can you find salivary amylase? What is its function? So salivary amylase is produced or secreted by salivary glands, and it is secreted into the mouth cavity. Correct? It is released into the mouth. Now what is the function of that? Function will be, it helps in swallowing the food, as well as salivary amylase will convert the carbohydrate or the starch into sugar, that is maltose. That you have to write. 2 functions are there, right? 2 functions and where it is found, that you have to write. This is for 2 marks. Next we have, how is small intestine designed to absorb digested food? For that you're going to write, there are millions of finger-like structures called as villi and microvilli. So due to the presence of villi and microvilli, what will happen? The surface area for absorption increases in the small intestine, and there are minute blood vessels inside these villi. So that helps in absorbing the nutrients. So these 3 points have to come in your answer. If you chew chapati slowly, it tastes sweet. Why is that tasting sweet? That is because during chewing process we use saliva, right? So while chewing, saliva is released, and saliva contains salivary amylase, right? So chapati has starch, which is carbohydrate. That starch will be converted into sugar by salivary amylase, and that's the reason chapati will turn sweet if you're going to chew it for a longer time. Okay, now which external raw material does an organism use for its growth? So external raw material used for growth. This is for 3 marks. So what you have to write for this is The external raw materials are, one is food. Food we need for energy as well as bodybuilding, and food we get it from outside. Next is oxygen. Oxygen is required for respiration, right? So digestion, respiration, release of energy. So cellular respiration, for that purpose we need oxygen. Next we have water. For all the life processes, starting from nutrition, excretion, all those processes we need water. So life processes occur in the medium of water. Water is very important. So food, oxygen and water, these are the raw materials that an organism has to take for its growth, in order to grow. Next, the last question for the day, that is, leaves of a healthy potted plant were coated with Vaseline. Will this plant remain healthy for longer? So give a reason for your answer. So we have to tell whether it is going to remain healthy or not. So the leaves of this plant, the leaf is coated with Vaseline. So what will happen to the plant? So you have to remember that plants are autotrophs and they perform photosynthesis. To perform photosynthesis, they need carbon dioxide, and this carbon dioxide will enter into the plant through the stomata. And when you are using the Vaseline, when you coat the leaf of this plant with Vaseline, what will happen? The plant will not be able to take in carbon dioxide, and definitely photosynthesis will not happen. As well as there is a process called transpiration happening through the stomata. Here now the stomata is blocked because of applying Vaseline. So transpiration will not happen in this case. So there is no photosynthesis, there is no transpiration happening in the plant. So what will happen after few days? The plant is going to die. It is not going to live longer. That you have to explain it. So which is called mixed gland? Answer with reason. So pancreas is called as mixed gland. Why? Because it has endocrine glands which secretes insulin and glucagon, and also it has exocrine glands which secretes enzymes for digestion. So pepsin, pancreatic enzyme and lipase. So these are the enzymes secreted by the pancreas for the digestion process. So it acts both as endocrine gland and exocrine gland. That's the reason pancreas is called as mixed gland. So that's it for today, students. I'll see you all in the next class with a new topic. Thank you.